Plan B.
Welcome to the BIA College Football Podcast. That's Philly Phil. I'm Hugie. Buckeyes coming off of a 23-3 victory against Indiana, heading into week 2 against Youngstown State. Phil, how are you feeling?
Well, Hugie, I'm feeling well rested because that game on Saturday was very boring. I was able to catch a nap during that second half, waiting for the offense to show up. But yeah, the positive is that I'm well rested and ready to talk today, ready to look forward to a better game, better performance on Saturday.
Yeah. I'm overcoming a cold today, man, from the weekend. I don't know if it's because of the Buckeyes game, but I went to bed that night on Saturday, and I woke up in the middle of the night thinking, man, that was a nightmare. There's no way that was the Buckeyes playing Indiana. We're used to these past 2 seasons, a blowout victory, but nonetheless, I will take a victory as we head into week 2 against Youngstown State. Want to start off the show with a segment we like to call Glow and Grow, where we look at a glowing moment for the Buckeyes and an area where they can grow. So I'll start off with the positivity. The good news is that our defense held Indiana to 153 total yards. An Ohio State national champion quarterback named Cardale Jones. I think that you know who Cardale is, Phil. He tweeted out and said, "Give credit to the OSU defense, holding a Big Ten opponent to 3 points on the road." Probably is tweeting that out in response to some of the things that he was seeing online from fans, focusing on our offense. But I want to focus on the defense, and in particular, Hero Kanu. Hero Kanu, this is his second year at Ohio State. He didn't get a lot of playing time last year, but his number was called later on in the game. I want to say it was around in the fourth quarter. He recorded a sack. It was the only recorded sack. I thought we had 2, man, but when I went back and watched the game, there was a QB draw that a defensive lineman was able to hit the quarterback behind the line, but they didn't count that as a sack. But either way, Hero Kanu recorded 1 sack, and that made me excited because now some of the recruits that we have coming into class of 24 are able to see that growth and development. Larry Johnson is still coaching them hard, and I definitely expect the defensive line to have a big game in week 2. But that's where I'm starting at with my positive take for the Buckeyes. What's your response to that?
Yeah, definitely appreciate the positive vibes. Need those in Buckeye Nation right now. I'll just say this, that someone had tweeted that Ohio State hadn't hadn't basically held an opponent to 3 points or less since 2019, so 4 years ago. And some people were responding, it's Indiana, so obviously it's not an accomplishment. But again, since 2019, we played Indiana every year. And so we've also played some other bad teams. Our defense has played well in some games, but holding an opponent to three or less is something that is an accomplishment. It does indicate not only playing well, but playing dominant. And that's what we want to see from our defense. And that's the one wish you had, Hugie, for our team, is not giving up a touchdown till week 4. And we are on the way. They are on the way to granting that wish for you. So love to see that. Love to see that. What I did not love to see was the O-line looking leaky. So what I would say is a grow for us, something we want to improve on. Really pass blocking and run blocking. To me, it was even almost more glaring in the run blocking, just seeing defenders, linebackers, hitting our players behind the line of scrimmage. We've got some talented backs, some who are shifty, some who are powerful. Mayan Williams is famous for having a lot of yards after contact, but that contact shouldn't be coming behind the line of scrimmage, and that was happening too often. And so that happened even also for Devin Brown in his one series where he was trying to get out to the outside on a short yardage play. He's also getting hit, a yard behind the line of scrimmage. So Our players are talented, but that's a lot to ask. So I really wanted to see the O line stepping up and giving these playmakers a chance, giving them a chance to gain some momentum, and then be able to utilize their vision or their speed or their power or something. But we got to keep them clean at least before the line of scrimmage. That's a bare minimum, especially against the opponent that we played on Saturday. And so I want to see that moving forward, giving our guys some room to hopefully make some plays.
Yeah, I'm excited though about the fact that the offensive line can grow from this moment. Like, what if we look back, weeks down the line and say this was the worst game for the offensive line? We hope that's the case, right? And I think that it's good for us to build upon this moment as for them to be a majority young offensive line. They're gonna have to create some chemistry. Gonna definitely need to clean up those mistakes, and I think definitely build confidence in these next couple games here before we go to South Bend. And so, yeah, that was a great take there. Offensive line definitely had some leaky moments. Um, but wanted to go ahead and transition over to our BIA spotlight. So, what is your BIA spotlight as we looked at the secondary for Ohio State in this game?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we want to obviously we are the BIA pod, and so we just want to make sure that we're highlighting our secondary. Um, finding a moment that we want to highlight each game from that group. For me, the player to highlight really this game is going to be Malik Hartford. Um, I was really excited. There's a lot of talk about which young guys are we going to get to see play, especially on the defensive side. And Malik Hartford was not somebody I was anticipating getting to play this early as a freshman. We have a lot of depth actually at safety, and so when I heard the buzz around him playing, I kind of was like, yeah, maybe, but probably not. Maybe in the fourth quarter. But he played I think 25 snaps. Got in there, made some impact plays, got a big stop on third down. Was just active and kind of in the middle of stuff. That's what you want to see from a safety. And so I'm just really excited to see that because that really shows me that he's going to be somebody whose role only grows. They gave him a chance in game one, and he made the most out of those 25 snaps. So that means we're going to see him more and more this year. That's really exciting. So I'm spotlighting Malik Hartford for getting in and actually doing something with that time.
That was a good choice. Good choice. I want to spotlight a particular play. Last year, this person could be, at least in the first game, could be identified based on a particular explosive play by Notre Dame. Sixth year senior Josh Proctor. I definitely got to make sure, man. I don't know if we have it on the soundboard, but if there's any way we can give some applause to Josh Proctor, that'd be great, man. That'd be great. Um, there we go. There we go. Standing ovation, man. Look, there was a play right before the end of the first half. It was 4th and 4 for Indiana, and Josh Proctor was. I love the everything about this play, beginning, middle, and end. Before the play started, he plays free safety. He lined up near the line on a slot receiver. The two Indiana receivers did a crossing route where they intersected each other, and Josh took the low man and he basically batted a pass away. I would have loved to have seen him pick it off. If he would have picked that off, it would have definitely been for six. But I love to see the fact that that wasn't just the only play, but I think that was a pivotal play that led to the offense taking over, and we at least got three points out of that ensuing drive. It's we left a lot of points on the field, man. But but just highlighting that BIA moment. Love to see the growth in his last year here at Ohio State. Josh Proctor. Hopefully, he goes on to do some big things at the next level. So
Yeah, I,
yeah,
I, I didn't think I was going to see Malik Hartford playing. I definitely didn't think I was going to see Josh Proctor playing. So seeing him start, I was like, what? What could have happened this week to bring about this development? But definitely was pleasant surprise to see him playing well, making plays, being in the right place. So shout out to him. I don't hate on most players, but I definitely have said some negative things about Josh Proctor's play over the years. So, he definitely kind of shut me up before I could say anything on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how they're gonna end up moving that rotation in the secondary, especially amongst the safeties. So yeah, moving right along, we are now heading into week two. Uh, Looking to be 2-0 coming out of this game against the Youngstown State Penguins. I actually did a little bit of research
Okay.
as to why they're called the Penguins. Uh, to make a long story short, it stems from this 1933 basketball game they had with a school in West Virginia, and I guess it was like a snowy time. It was a during obviously the winter time during basketball season, college basketball season, and there's conflicting reports. So I'm just going to keep it short. It was a cold. They did not have a mascot at Youngstown State at that time, and so the Penguins is basically the name that came out of out of that basketball game. But moving forward, they are obviously the Youngstown State Penguins. They are 1-0 coming into this matchup, and yeah, they played actually their notable game last year, which they didn't score in the game, but they played Kentucky, and the game wound up being 31-0. So it it sounds like it's definitely going to be um, one of the a cake game for Ohio State, but I don't want them to take that attitude. I want them to definitely make Youngstown State earn everything. And so with that though, do you what do you see, Phil, as being the biggest challenge for the Buckeyes heading into this game against Youngstown State?
Yeah, I think, for me, usually going into a game like this, I would be saying the biggest challenge is just making sure that you're getting up for the game, that you're not um, blowing it off or looking past them to the next week or the week afterwards. Um, they did score 52 points last week. Um, and so, at least among talent level comparable to them, they were able to do some scoring. But I think more so the fact that Ohio State struggled last week, I don't see getting up being a challenge. To me, I actually think the biggest challenge will just be, internal. That's going to be our rotations. They're we just shouted out rotating in, Malik Hartford and Josh Proctor. Some of that was happening on defense. It wasn't happening sort of in every place on the defense and on the offense. And so I think the biggest challenge this week will be how to make sure that in a game like this, you usually want to get in your backups. You want to see that your third and fourth receiver and your fifth receiver and your sixth receiver get in, get some plays, get some touchdowns, get some tape. But Marvin Harrison and Emeka Ibuka were combined for 5 receptions last week. So you actually didn't see our stars get into their rhythm, right? And so I think that's going to be that challenge for me, is just how do you actually still make sure that your starters are getting confidence, and especially on the offensive side, playing well, while making sure that you take advantage of the fact that you're playing an FCS opponent to get those backups in. So that usually wouldn't be an issue, but we played poorly on offense in week one. So I think you're actually going to have to see um, those starters play some significant time in this game so they can be going in and people aren't saying, maybe we overrated this OSU wide receiver room. Like, that's something that we don't want to be hearing. That's something that they don't want to be hearing. And so I think that'll be a challenge. How do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, we have to be careful not to take things for granted. Like when Marvin Harrison caught the at the time a touchdown pass before the penalty, they said that he ran out of bounds when he actually got pushed. But um, I got hyped because even though I've seen Marvin score often enough, it's like okay, he was able to get a uh, touchdown reception in this first game, but obviously that got taken away from him. And it looked like he had obviously they had been struggling to get him the ball uh, during the course of the game. So uh, yeah, so that's a great point. The one thing I would say, just tying back to what you basically said as the what we need to grow from the Indiana game, is the offensive line. I want this to be a game where we build confidence, um, drive by drive. I want to definitely see that they have the challenge of being able to take care of an FCS team. Youngstown State is an FCS team, right? Right. Okay. Cool.
Yes, sir.
So yeah. Want to make sure want to see them take care of an FCS defensive line. No disrespect to them, but I mean, if you're at Ohio State, I definitely expect there to be some talent against Youngstown State on the O line. Um, build confidence with each and every single drive, each and every single quarter, and go ahead and put that game under your belt as we go into Western Kentucky in week 3. Want to see them do the same thing there. But yeah, in particular, to what you said, and kind of piggybacking off of the offensive line run blocking, I want to definitely see Travion Henderson get have some long runs here. Chip train him. I mean, man, I saw some people on Twitter saying he's RB1. I know I'm not about to sell Travion's stock at all. I think that he still has some learning to do. He is coming off of an injury from last year. This is his first game since the Maryland game, right? I think so. From last year, so I think that he still has, you know, some things to learn. I have confidence that he's going to absolutely get it together. But that's going to start with the offensive line. So that's going to be my biggest challenge. Where I see the best unit being going into this game is definitely our defensive line. Uh, I challenge the our D line to have uh, sacks from 3 different guys in this game. I don't know what combination you want to have. I don't know if you want Jack Sawyer, JTT, and Kenyatta Jackson. I don't know if you want, Mike Hall Jr. and just within that mix. I mean, but I definitely expect them to be able to make it to basically, what do they say on the D line? Make it home against the quarterback, and basically sack him in the backfield. So I definitely think that the defensive line is going to be our best unit um, this game against Youngstown State.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, the Eagle line was what I was gonna choose as well. I think they got to be fired up because, again, the defense held the opponent to I forgot how many yards you said, but not a lot of yards and 3 points. And people were still saying that the edge guys, weren't really providing the pressure that we expect from them to do. So I think that's going to make them fired up and say, hey, we had a great game, but people are still kind of questioning whether or not we can do that. So against a lesser offensive line, definitely, I believe also that the D line will come through and be dominant. Just to add another unit there, then I'll go ahead and go with wide receivers just because I think that not only will they be fired up to kind of have a better showing, but I think there will be a lot of emphasis on the quarterbacks to get the ball to those receivers, right? Because it's kind of, I mean, as bad as it is that Emeka and Marvin only had 5 catches, they weren't targeted that often. So it's not like they just had a bunch of drops or, even a bunch of off-target throws. They just weren't targeted that often. And so I think that unit will also be thirsty for some stats. So they might go off.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. Definitely looking at some, before we get to the score, because speaking of the wide receivers and them wanting to eat and get some touchdowns, I know that you said you had a question that you wanted to pose or bring up from something you saw on Twitter.
Yeah. So this is a question then that I'll kind of pose to you, and kind of ask you your opinion on this, kind of a would you rather situation. So we talked about rotating players in, talked about getting young guys in, how that happened in the first game, didn't happen for everybody. So two players who people I think wanted to see more of last week who we didn't. And this question, by the way, is from user on Twitter, Aaliyah at Aaliyah Be Like, and she asked, "Who do you want to have more snaps next week? Devin Brown or C.J. Hicks? Devin Brown, backup quarterback. C.J. Hicks, backup linebacker. Hugie, who do you want to see more get some burn?"
Man, that's a good question. That's a good question. Uh, is it possible to say both?
No, either
Okay.
or.
Okay. I would say for me personally, I want to see CJ Hicks get more reps. Um, I know that means that's taking reps away from Steel Chambers, more than likely. I just want to be able to see what he can do, man. I just want to. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of talk in the community about free CJ Hicks. I'm glad that nobody's wearing that shirt around Columbus that says free Hicks. Um, but I just want to be able to see what he can do. It kind of going back to the last episode when we talked about Ryan Day starting McCord over Devin Brown, even though some people within the fan base want to see Devin Brown play. Um, we trust Ryan Day, and on the same side, on the other side of the ball, we got to trust Jim Knowles and um, the defensive coaches to basically put the best product on the field. I Having said that, I still want to see CJ Hicks, man. That's going to be my answer to that question.
Yeah, I don't know if I trust Jim Knowles yet. I don't. I wouldn't put my trust at the same level as it is for Ryan Day for old Jimmy. I'm gonna go Devin Brown, not just to be different, but I think to me at least on the defense we saw some rotation, right? We saw some of those guys get in. We saw Hartford playing. You're shouting out Hero Canoe for making a play, and so to me that makes me a little less sure of CJ Hicks being somebody who was ready and just didn't get the call, because I feel like on the defense we did see some young guys get burned, right? And so I want to see Devin Brown mainly just so we can know. Right now it's just this like there's this power of the backup quarterback really on any team, right? Where it's like it's the unknown, and so it could be better, right? And so I just want to see it and either say yes, hey, we find out this guy is actually better, or nah, we should really now we see why we're focusing on McCord, why Day is focused on McCord, and we can still believe in Devin Brown's future, but say that now is not his time, and we've only got one more game between now and the game that the first losable game we have, which would be Notre Dame. So definitely want to see Brown play now, because obviously we don't want to throw him in that Notre Dame game without having experience. So if he is going to play in that game, he needs to be playing now. So I want to make sure that he's getting in. I think we would need that more so than we would necessarily need that third linebacker to be playing great by the Notre Dame game. Cool.
Yeah.
If you have people have their own thoughts to that question, definitely y'all can comment those. And again, shout out to our mutual on Twitter, Aaliyah, for the great hypothetical.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Aaliyah. Thank you for that question. So now time for the prediction. What is your final score prediction for Youngstown State versus Ohio State?
Listen, last week I was right about a lot of stuff. I was very wrong on the final score. I went big, but listen, I'm not one known to learn from my mistakes. I'm going big again. Give me 64-3. Yeah, man. I'm gonna keep on. I'm gonna will it to happen, man. Offense got to step up. It should be, man. Nah, that's not even that much to ask. 64 points, lesser opponent. The 3 points might be the bigger ask to do that back to back, but I'm believing in it. Let's see it.
Okay, all right. Go big or go home.
Go big or go home.
Last week, I definitely kept it conservative with our offense, and I'm not going to do that this week. I definitely think we're going to be fit over 50, give them a 50 burger. So I'm going to definitely say that the offense is going to score 59 points. I'm gaining I'm gaining some inspiration from somebody in BIA. Okay. Denzel Burke said that 3 points this past weekend was too much for the defense to give up. I think they're hungry. I think they can do it. I think they can pitch a shutout. So, having said that, I'm taking the Buckeyes 59-0 over
Woo.
the Penguins.
The Penguins. Hopefully the Penguins didn't hear that. That's bulletin board material.
Yeah. Going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about one player and one team highlighted from week one. And then I got something I want to get off my chest. Something I heard some people talking at the side of their mouth about a particular announcer from Saturday. All that is next. We are back here on the BIA podcast, and we're going to take a national look at one player, one team from week one that stood out to us. Phil, what player stood out to you in week one?
Listen, there's a couple of players that I'm a save for you, knowing how you feel about a certain team and a certain coach. I'm gonna let you have those guys, okay? But to me, um, the player that stands out who didn't play in the big noon game is quarterback Jordan Travis. Um, this game was, billed to be the game of the week. Supposed to be maybe one of the games of the year. It was last year. This year, the first half was tight, and then it kind of got away from LSU in the second half. And one of the main reasons it got away from them is because Jordan Travis was on point. Really, the reason I want to highlight him is because he had good stats. He had almost 350 yards. He had about 75% completion rating, 4 touchdowns, passing, and he had 1 rushing actually. But more so, that's great. That alone would be enough to spotlight him. But really, it was the fact that he was on the biggest stage of the weekend, the brightest lights, and he just looked comfortable. Like he looked calm, looked like he was in control. They came into the third quarter with a deficit. Went into halftime down, and he just looked like he was composed. In his one, rushing touchdown with the read and the being able to pull and scamper in, it's just like he looked like he was in control of that team. If I'm a Florida State fan, which I'm not, to be clear, if I'm a Florida State fan though, I'm feeling really good about this guy leading my team. He had a lot of hype coming into the season. Like, is he gonna take another step? To me, it looked like he is ready for that next level of expectations. So I'm gonna shout out Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis, beating a top 5 team on a neutral site, beating them by multiple touchdowns, and being the best player on the field.
I think it's hilarious that we call these neutral sites in the same state as one of the teams. Last year it was in New Orleans. This year it was in Orlando. Shout out to the Knowles. Shout out to Jordan Travis. He did play a great game. Got away from the Tigers in the end, but yeah, no, Jordan Travis played a great game. Now it's time for me to talk about the team that stood out in week one. Everybody kind of knows. So it's like you got to be pretty creative in trying to set this up. And I took a little bit of time with this, but I'm gonna go ahead and just real quick quote something, some New York rapper. Okay, New York rapper, not from a song. Something he has said recently. He said, "Yesterday's price is not today's price." And that is the case with Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes, man, against TCU. What a great game! What a great atmosphere! I mean, this is like everything that you love about college football in week one. Uh, Most notably, they were underdogs. I want to say they were 20.5 point underdogs. And it was, I think the score was 45-42, I believe. Um, I mean, just, you know, players, Edwards at the running back position, Shador Sanders playing quarterback, throwing for over 500 yards. Somebody, I was talking to someone during the week. They were like, uh, that's the one thing they hate about college football is somebody throwing over 500 yards. And you know what I said? I said that's the thing I love about college football: seeing somebody throw over 500 yards. I mean, it wasn't it was not like a blowout and that he threw for 500 yards. It was a shootout, and that's what I loved about it was the back and forth that they had. That Colorado knows that they need to shore up some of the stuff on their defense. I do believe they actually can do that because those crossing routes from TCU were killing them during the middle of the game. They ended up fixing it in that last possession, that last defensive possession. But man, shout out to Coach Prime. I mean, there's not much more I can really say, except for there's one thing. I would be remiss if I did not mention that crazy, sick interception by Travis Hunter in the red zone, man. I mean, the running back, I believe, ran a wheel route and Travis cut it off. And I mean, he had some miscues in the first half on a couple, on one definitely deep ball, another when, by the way, this is somebody who plays both sides of the ball. If you're a college football fan, you know this by now. He plays both offense and defense. He plays cornerback and receiver. When he was on offense and he was a receiver, he missed one deep ball. He also missed he caught the ball in the corner of the end zone, but one of his feet basically stepped out before he had control, so they didn't count. But shout out to him. He was. It seemed like he was definitely bent on having a highlight for us all to talk about, and I look forward to seeing that against some of the big games. I mean, that's just what you want to see from someone who was the number one college recruit coming out. I want to say it was 2021. Was it 21? I believe. Um, and me and you were talking. We were like, "Can you imagine if he would have went to Florida State? It's kept that commitment, like where they would be at now that they're starting to
Mm-hmm.
starting to trend themselves." So there's other teams I definitely could have picked, but I mean Colorado, obviously the popular pick. I wanted to definitely talk about them and shout out the Buffs as they take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Um, on Saturday at noon. So another nationally televised game should be fun to see how that turns out. Phil, you can definitely chime in here. I'm not going to take too much time, I promise. But somebody who called that game, Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt. Joel Klatt was a former quarterback who for the Buffs. Obviously, he was neutral in calling the game. Gus Johnson is a black play-by-play sports announcer in college football primarily. He has done some NFL. Obviously, in his career, he's done some college football. I'm sorry, basketball and NBA, which actually kind of surprised me this past year. But it is just so much fun, man, listening to him call games. Like he adds that flavor that's just, like somebody like a Jim Nance doesn't add, or other names are escaping me. Fowler. Right now, it's just some names are just escaping me. And he just adds that, I don't know what you want to call it, pizzazz to just calling games. Like, and I heard on a podcast this week that it sounded like he, just yells for no reason now, and that he was going for Colorado. Well, Gus Johnson also called the Minnesota Nebraska game on Thursday night. Gus Johnson was doing the same thing. Anytime there was a big play, he got excited, especially when there's a team that's coming from behind. When there's a shootout going on, like what's one of the things that you and I have talked about, that Gus Johnson loves to create a narrative. He loves to create a story during the game. And so when he's getting excited about the underdog, somebody who was an underdog by 3 scores, and they literally come are making this a game, like of course he's going to be excited about that, because they both kind of went into it as everybody else, not necessarily thinking that Colorado, or there was a question mark, from the fact that this was a new coach, new quarterback, so many transfers on the team. What was this going to look like? And they go into Fort Worth and make it a game. Not only make it a game, but they win. So I didn't hear the criticism there. I've heard criticism that he calls us the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes when he calls a game for us. We're going to talk about that in another time. Educate the audience on why he actually says that. But shout out to Gus Johnson, man. I'm excited about seeing him call the game against with Colorado and Nebraska here. Phil, did you have anything you wanted to add at all?
No, Gus is my guy. Is my favorite announcer for sure. And yeah, I mean Gus roots for Story, and yeah, it's not exciting for a 21-point favorite to win at home. It's just not. That's not an exciting story. It is an exciting story to see players on the national stage for the first time shock the world, and so you can hear that in his voice because that's what made that game something that everybody was talking about the next day. Is because it was such a great story, and he is adding to that, and that's what he gets paid to do.
Exactly. So we can still disagree and be civil. I just respectfully disagree, and I just had to make sure I said it. People can say what they want on their podcast. We get to say what we want on ours, and so again, shout out to Gus. Um, so having said that, we're down to the last segment of our show. Uh, Again, I said this last week. I'm gonna say it again. The game show that's sweeping the nation, Pick Six. As I'm definitely getting swept as we look at the scores and the results. Let's first off let's go ahead and look at the results from last week. So we have Phil. You are definitely riding high with a 3-point lead, basically, as you have your 2 points from last week. I my lock won. However, they did not win by uh, set 8 points. So the floor is yours from winning week one.
Yeah. I mean, this game we're trying to pick winners. I did that, and you failed. Yeah. I had three after 3 picks last week. My lock won, my toss up won, my upset pick lost, but that game was almost Nebraska's. They just choked in the end to Minnesota. Minnesota made a great catch. So I feel good about my picks. I'm looking forward to continuing my success in week 2 and hoping that Huge, you continue to remain scoreless as you have for week 0 and week 1, which is almost as hard to do as it is to pick all of the right picks, is to pick all of the wrong picks. So shout out to you for that. All right. Listen, I get to choose where I want to go first. So honestly, I don't think any of my games this week are games that you're gonna necessarily want. So I'm not really worried about getting my picks in, but I am going to start with my upset again. Hopefully it works out for me this time. And I'm gonna go with. I'm just trying to make sure I get the right number and see what we're at currently. Again, we use the Yahoo Sportsbook to get our numbers, and so checking to see what it is at today. We're at 7 points, which is right in the frame that I can use for an upset. Give me the Green Wave of Tulsa at home, taking down the Rebels of Ole Miss. washing away the Rebels and their legacy of what Rebels did in the South. Give me Tulane Tulane +7 outright winning against Ole Miss.
Okay, I was about to say, bro. You said Tulsa, and I was about to be like, previous players under further review. You said Tulsa at the beginning, and then you cleaned it up and said Tulane. I knew that. I knew which game you were talking about, so I was not going to get you there. Um, yeah, last week I hesitated. I hit people with the hezzy. I'm not hitting anybody with no hezzy this week. Give me the Longhorns against Bama.
I like
I
that.
think that Texas, first of all, Ohio State fans definitely want to see this happen. A lot of fans want to see this happen, right?
Texas, baby.
Secondly, last year they almost beat Alabama um, in Austin with Bryce Young as Alabama's quarterback. This year, I'm not taking anything away from Milroe. He played a phenomenal game last week. This is different. This is going to be different. Can he still make those throws? We know he can absolutely run. He might, I was going to say, he might be a better runner than Bryce Young. He might be a faster runner than Bryce Young, but definitely not as shifty. But we'll see. He might prove me wrong. So, but I am going to take Texas, though. I'm going to take Quinn Ewers and Sarkeesian in that offense. So
I feel it.
give me Texas.
Where are we
All
going
right.
next, G?
We're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and take my toss up.
Okay.
Talk about this team. I want to watch this game. I don't want to think that I don't want to watch this game and wish I would have picked them like I did last week. Give me Colorado over Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean that's a good pick. I can't remember exactly how much that line has moved from last week, but definitely significant. And yeah, at home, there people are feeling the buffs. I'm not sure exactly, but I would definitely love to see it. I am going to go for my toss up. I'm gonna stick at home. I haven't shared, but I live in Virginia, so I got to represent for my home state. I'm not a fan of this team actually, but I am going to pick them this week as a 3-point favorite at home in a great home environment. Um, enter the Sandman and enter Virginia Tech into the spreadsheet over Purdue, coming off a loss. Boilermakers not looking that great so far. Tech at home is tough to beat.
As you were talking, I went ahead and put them in because I knew you were going to say that. That was going to be my secondary pick. I love that pick as Purdue did not get the job done against Fresno State at home last week. What makes me think that they're going to be able to do that against Virginia Tech? But hey, I'm no expert. I've got I'm at -1, so hopefully
This is the
we'll see.
understatement of the year. Um,
All right,
all
man.
right.
Who you got us? Who do you have as your lock?
So my lock, I had to pull up the numbers again. It wasn't showing up for me, but I got them. I'm gonna go with a team. I'm really kind of fading this other team. The team that people thought was gonna challenge to win the Big 12 this year. They came out and looked and smelled stinky against Wyoming. That's Texas Tech. Give me Oregon playing on the road. They are a 6.5-point favorite. So give me Oregon -6.5. I think they're the better team. I mean, they were already a better team. I now think Texas Tech's confidence has to be a little shot. That home crowd is not going to be as hype in their home opener as they were expecting to be starting off this season. And Oregon, obviously, they scored 1,000,000 points. Their duck almost passed out from all the push-ups he had to do. I think the better team's going to win in a touchdown isn't too much to ask. It's not like Texas Tech's defense showed they were anything too scary. Yeah, as you can see, we've got the duck passed out after 81 points. So yeah, I think they can score more than a touchdown over Texas Tech. That's my lock.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you see the pictures that we have. Some of the not only funny pictures, but definitely amazing plays, like the interception by Travis Hunter, the free hamburgers shirt that JJ McCarthy wore to the game. Hey, great, interesting decision there, and interesting look coming out of the Nebraska Minnesota game.
The one game I
Hopefully,
lost, he's hype. He's hype about that. It's the one game I
oh
lost.
no, I did
Oh
not do
no. Oh
that.
yeah. It's just
I
it's cool.
I really did not do that because of that. But yeah, if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, uh, take a look at our spreadsheet on YouTube. And as I take us home, I am going to go ahead again, not hesitate, and go ahead and take the Seminoles of Florida State minus 31 against Southern Miss, I believe they play. Southern Miss. You want to go ahead and verify? Yep, Southern Miss Golden Eagles, home of Brett Favre and a few other things that he did. He's done here, or has been alleged to have done, I should say.
Nah, he did it. He did it. Okay. Let's do a quick summary of the picks. I started with my upset. I'm choosing Tulane as a 7-point underdog to beat Ole Miss at home. My toss up in a 3-point as 3-point favorites, I'm choosing Virginia Tech over Purdue at home as well. And then my one road team I'm choosing is Oregon. I'm locking them up to beat Texas Tech by at least a touchdown.
Okay. For me, I am taking the Seminoles to beat Southern Miss by over 31 points. My toss up. Do you believe? I'm taking Colorado to take down Nebraska. It's their favorite, I believe, by 3.5, but it doesn't matter because I'm taking Colorado to outright win. And then as my upset, I am picking Texas to hook Bama down in Tuscaloosa. I'm looking at my picks, man. I like them. I like two of yours for sure. The upset, we'll see. I just think it's going to be a tall task for Tulane to upset Ole Miss, but they do get them at home, so that's a plus.
Remember who they beat at the end of last season? Tulane.
Yeah, that game against USC. That was a good game. That was a great game, actually. So yeah, that is our show. Thank you, Phil, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. I appreciate the support and the love. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Where else are we gonna? We are going to basically be well known here as we are basically making our mark amongst our fan base and amongst college football fans. So with that, Phil, OH.
Hi-yo. Peace.